Imagine you take a flight from New York JFK Airport to Los Angeles International Airport. That's about 6-hour flights cover 4,500 kilometers, or around about 2,800 miles of distance. You obviously fly through a lot of airspace across the continent. But how does this airspace works? There are two categories of airspace, regulatory and non-regulatory. Within these two categories, there are 4 types: controlled, uncontrolled, special use, and other airspace. The categories and types of airspace are dedicated by the complexity or density of the aircraft movements, nature of the operations conducted within the airspace, the level of safety required, and the national and public interest. Now let's think about your plane. It's taking off from New York JFK Airport. The first airspace that is flight into would be a Class B airspace. Class B airspace is generally airspace from the surface to 10,000 feet surrounding the nation's busiest airport like JFK and Los Angeles. In terms of the airport's operations, the configuration of each Class B airspace area is individually tailored, consists of the surface area and 2 or more layers, and is designed to contain all published instrument procedures once an aircraft enters the airspace. Imagine a wedding cake. They have different layers, from small on the top and big at the bottom. The Class B airspace is like the opposite way of the wedding cake, which has a smaller portion of circle at the bottom, and it grows bigger once the altitude builds up. Once the plane flies into this area, they need to talk with the air traffic control, which air traffic control will give them clearance for how the aircraft flies. After an airplane departed from JFK Airport, it will follow the standard departure route all the way to its cruising altitude. After 18,000 feet, it will enter Class A airspace. Class A airspace is generally the airspace from 18,000 feet mean sea level up to and include flight level 600, which is 60,000 feet, including the airspace over the water within 12 nautical miles of the coast of the 48 states and Alaska. Unless otherwise authorized, all operation in Class A airspace is conducted under Instrument Flight Rules, or IFR, which means all the pilots who flies in this area must use their instruments to circumnavigate from waypoints to waypoints. Once the pilot is reaching this cruising altitude, the autopilot can take care all the way to flight from East Coast to West Coast. Flying in the Class A airspace, the pilots will talk to different air traffic control based on where they are. For example, they may talk to New York Center at the very first place, switching to Chicago, Denver, and go to the Los Angeles Center before it starts initiating the descent and approach Los Angeles International Airport. Once the aircraft starts its initiating descent, it will enter Los Angeles Class B airspace again, which it will follow the published standard arrival route into Los Angeles International Airport. This is a common route of entering, leaving, and re-entering the airspace for a commercial flight from JFK to Los Angeles, but there are still a lot of other airspace in the area. We have Class C, D, and E airspace. Class C airspace is generally airspace from the surface to 4,000 feet above the airport elevation. Surrounding those airports that have operational control tower are serviced by a radar approach control and have a certain number of IFR operations or passenger enplanements. Although the configuration of each Class C area is individually tailored, the airspace usually consists of the surface area with a 5 nautical mile radius, an outer circle with a 10 nautical radius that extends from 1,200 feet to 4,000 feet above the airport elevation. Each aircraft must establish two-way radio communication with the ATC facility providing air traffic services prior to entering the airspace, and thereafter must maintain those communications well within the airspace. And there's also Class D airspace. Class D airspace is generally airspace from the surface to 2,500 feet above the airport elevation, surrounding those airports that have an operational control tower. The configuration of each Class D airspace area is individually tailored, and when instrument procedures are published, the airspace is normally designed to contain the procedures. Arrival extensions for instrument approach procedures may be Class D or Class E airspace. Unless otherwise authorized, each aircraft must establish two-way radio communication with the ATC facility providing air traffic services prior to enter the airspace as well. And the last would be Class E airspace. Class E airspace is the controlled airspace not classified as Class A B, C, or D airspace. A large amount of the airspace over the United States is designated as Class E airspace. In most areas, the Class E airspace base is 1,200 feet above ground level. In many other areas, the Class E airspace is either the surface or 700 feet above ground level. Some Class E airspace begin as the MSL altitude depicted on the charts instead of on the AGL altitude. Class E airspace typically extends up to, but not including, 18,000 feet. All airspace above flood level 600 is Class E airspace as well. Now we talk about a controlled airspace. There is also uncontrolled airspace, like Class G airspace. Uncontrolled airspace or Class G airspace is the portion of the airspace that has not been designated as Class A, B, C, D, or E. It is therefore designated uncontrolled airspace. Class G airspace extends from the surface to the base of the overflying Class E airspace. Although ATC has no authority or responsibility to control air traffic, pilots should remember these are visual flight rules, or VFR, minimums that applies to Class G airspace. Besides this, there's also special use airspace, like prohibited area, restricted area, warning area, military operation areas, alter area, and controlled fire areas. When flying into these areas, it's very important to check out the flight chart to see the restriction time and the specific rules when airplane flying over these areas. The other areas is generally a term referring to the majority of the remaining airspace. It includes local airport advisory, military training route, temporary flight restrictions, and so on. There is also the special areas called Terminal Radar Service Area, or TRSAS, which are the areas that participating pilots can receive additional radar services. The purpose of all the services is to provide separation between all IFR operations and participating VFR aircraft. The primary airports within the TRSA becomes Class D airspace. The remaining portion of the TRSA overflies at a controlled airspace, which is normally Class E airspace beginning at 700 or 1,200 feet and establish a transition to or from en route or terminal environment. I hope you enjoyed this video about the airspace above us and how these airspaces work and how do pilots fly over them. I will continue to publish more videos about airplanes. If you like to watch them, please do not hesitate to click the subscriptions below or comment your idea. See you next time.